What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another video. And today I just wanted to have another real conversation with you regarding a couple of things that I think will literally destroy any music career or really any career in general. It doesn't really matter what field this is. These are more character traits, if you will, and things that I've seen from personal experience ruin people's careers. So I hope these insights will resonate with you and you'll keep them in mind when you go forth in your career or in life. I'm not particularly old or anything, but I think even myself, I can kind of tell what works and what doesn't work in certain situations, and I just want to share them with you in today's video. So before we really dive into that, though, I think mindset is so important, and so that's why I put it together a free guide called the Composer's Mindset. Because the way we think about our careers and the way we approach music in general can really shape how we go forth in our careers and whether we're successful or not. And in this guide, I've basically pulled together three of the most important mindsets that I think every composer should equip themselves with to really ensure a fulfilling and long lasting career. So I want to give that to you completely free. If you click the first link in the description box below, it'll take you straight over to the page where you can grab it. And yeah, you can download it as my gift to you. So let's kind of dive in. The three things that I think will destroy your music career. Let's start with number one, and that is arrogance. Simply arrogance, right? Self-righteous people who are conceited, they think the world of themselves. And this is just something that it's like a poison, if you will. And it's so funny because I think it's something we can also sense from so far away. Even the first few words out of a person's mouth, you can kind of tell what they think of themselves, what they think of the world around them, and your position in relation to that person. But yeah, and examples of an arrogant person could include, like, they think they know a lot more than you do, and they kind of speak in a way that's condescending to you. And so no one likes to be talked down to, especially if you're in a similar field and you're trying to maybe get tips from each other or something like that. You're having a friendly exchange. The last thing you want is to be talked down to, like a parent talking down to their a disappointed parent talking down to their kid, right? So I've personally had experiences with this in the past where um maybe it was not so much in conversation, like person to person, but I was kind of messaging them back and forth, and they actually hired me for a project. And then I was sending things back and forth. We were kind of talking about whether they liked certain drafts or not. But over time, it became more evident that they started to take me and my services for granted. And so out of nowhere, they would be like, Chris, this needs more of this, or this is too loud. Turn that down, And it was quite evident through the text that they didn't really have a certain respect or a certain care for what I was really doing. It was more like it's like they were treating me as lower than them. And while I was certainly hard to do a certain job and I want to do the best I can, at the same time I want to be treated as an equal as well, because I certainly respect the work that I do. And as I also respect that the work you hired me for, right? I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the project. That's why I took it on in the first place, is because I think it would be a good fit and it would be a fun experience. But as soon as it gets to a point where you feel like they're talking down to you, or they're conceited and they feel like they know everything and you can't get a word in, well, then things might be taking a worse turn. So if you're kind of in that position where people feel intimidated to talk to you, maybe because your way of communication is maybe oppressive in a way, or it makes people feel like they don't know anything, that type of approach usually won't work too well. Unless, I guess, you're in a super high position and you're maybe known for a certain attitude and people really respect that, and that's part of your maybe brand or part of your act, then that's totally valid. But I think as a general character trait, it's always better to approach life with humility, with generosity, with open-handedness, and that will generally lead to better results in life in general, no matter what you do. People tend to want to work with other people who they enjoy spending time with, they enjoy chatting with, people who are generous in nature and humble and flexible and all of that stuff. So I think it's just important to think about how we present ourselves out to the world and how other people may consider those outputs of character. So arrogance is the first thing we definitely want to avoid no matter what we're doing in our lives. Self confidence, though, is a great thing, right? Like having a stand in your own abilities and knowing what you're worth, like that's certainly an applaudable character trait to have, and one that I think we all should have. But once it gets to the point where you feel like you're better than someone, and you speak to them as such, or you treat that person as such, then that's not such a good thing. So arrogance, I think, is the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing is more of an action, and that's showing up late. I think this is, again, it's not just music related, but it could be really in any professional field. If you show up late to a specific gig or job that you were hired for, you might get a warning the first time, but the second time you're probably going to get booted. Um, in music, though, particularly, like people really have no tolerance for people who are late. So you probably want to show up at least 10 to 15 minutes early to whatever gig you're being hired for, whether you're a session pianist, keyboardist, player, or you are an engineer for a certain job, you're a mastering engineer, whatever it may be. You want to make sure that you are on time, you are set up and good to go by the time the clock hits the appropriate time, and you just want to be eager, flexible, and ready to go. So tardiness is the, I guess, is the key word for that. Don't be late. Don't like just drag your feet around, because being late does say something about your character and the priorities you place on that certain thing. So if I was hired for a certain project, for example, I would always be sure never to deliver that project late. I would always make sure to maybe promise, like, oh, I'll get this done in a week, but I would always send it to the client within a few days because I want to over deliver. I want to show that I'm invested in the project and I really am taking it seriously. And so I'm working hard on it and I want to give it to you early so that you're pleasantly surprised with that result, right? It's all part of the customer experience. I think that's really important. So don't show up late or don't deliver things late. Make sure you are at least 10 to 15 minutes early if it's a physical appointment, but if it's like a deliverable, then send it at least, a day or two before or something like that. So that's number 2, showing up late. Number 3, and finally, is flexibility. I've already used this word quite a few times, but having flexibility in music is so important. And I think the people who don't have flexibility or aren't able to adapt to their surroundings, those are careers that are potentially destroyed because people don't want to be treated like, oh, there's no wiggle room here. Okay, I'm not going to work with you, because that kind of says that you think too much of yourself, or you have such a strict deadline that you can't even budge a little bit to meet halfway with someone maybe who you're negotiating with, right? So flexibility could also show it in the form of, like, maybe you are handed revisions for a certain project. Like let's say you did a mixing job for someone and they said, oh, the vocals are a little loud here, the drums are a bit muddy overall, can you kind of fix that? And if you're like, no, my mix was perfect, like just take it and run with it, especially if they already paid you for it. Like your job and your intention should be to make that song as good as possible, to make the mix as presentable and professional as possible. And if you can't go that extra mile to make sure it sounds exactly what the client hears, then that's basically shooting yourself in the foot. It's like you're doing half the job and then leaving it. You're leaving them with, let's be honest, like trash. Like they see it as maybe not trash, but like, an unfinished piece of work because they hired you for a professional sounding piece of art and you just did it like halfway and then you neglected it because of your own pride with lack of flexibility. So be flexible, be willing to accommodate. I'll use a personal example as well. So for a recent producing project I was hired for, the person reached out to me. They asked me for my budget, and I started out at about, let's say, like $500 for an arrangement project, and this was like multiple years ago. So at this point, I was like, okay, this is about a 3, or actually no, the song was about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, and they wanted a production job on it. And I was like, okay, I usually charge about, let's say $1,000 for it. So I was like, okay, yeah. So I typically charge about, or starting from $1,000 for a project of this type. And I deliberately said that price because I at least wanted them to respect that price. I didn't want to undercharge and then for them to say yes immediately. And then I would feel that maybe I lost out and could have asked for more money, So I'd rather overcharge a little bit and then opened the possibility for negotiation. So that person got back to me and said, "Oh, thanks for getting back to us. 1,000 is a little bit high because of the type of work that we do. The budget that we have is 600." And for me, I wasn't really doing this project or considering this project for the money. Actually, it was more for the like getting my name out there in front of this person. So I was more than happy to actually take that 600 and just run with it. I honestly would have been happy to probably do it for free, honestly, just to build this connection. But I'm glad I started high and then worked my way down, just to build that connection and that relationship. So having that flexibility is always very, very important as well. So let's just quickly recap. Number one, don't be arrogant. Don't think you're better than other people. And even if you do, don't present it that way to the outside world. Don't present it that way to the public, because that can shape your entire worldview, and the way you act. And that's just usually a negative thing. So be careful there. Number two is don't show up late. So set priorities, make sure you meet those promises and don't disappoint. Always over deliver by showing up early and being willing to do over and above more than what's expected of you. And that directly relates to number three, which is be flexible and don't be like hard-headed. Don't feel like your way is the only way. And because if you do, then people will just kind of block you out and not want to talk with you ever again. And no one wants that. So be flexible, show up early, and don't be arrogant. Be humble, be willing to work, and always go with the view that there's always more out there for you. Even if you don't get this job, for example, there's always more opportunities. There's always more to learn. We're always students, especially in music, in any creative field. And it's really rewarding and refreshing when you start to approach life in general from this way, in my opinion. So hopefully that helps. Let me know in a comment below what your thoughts are. If there's maybe one of these 3 points that really resonated with you the most, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Which one kind of stood out and kind of meant more to you maybe than the others? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And again, if you are kind of starting out in your journey, or if you've already been doing this for a while and you just want that clarity in how to really approach your career and life in general, I want to give you again that free guide called The Composer's Mindset. These are again 3 of the core principles that I think we should all be considering when we are in our composing or music careers in general, and they should really help us shape our way forward. So I want to give that to you totally free. A lot of my students have really enjoyed it so far. So just click the first link in the box below and you can grab it right away. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next video and take care. Bye-bye.